Tilder! What is this? This is the AtomCube RX1. How much does it cost? Approximately $170. You can control it with your smartphone. Battery lasts up to 3 hours. There's no flicker. It's got a bicolor mode, RGB mode, special effects mode. In fact, you can literally use these to shoot a short film all by yourself like this. Done. Roll that intro. What's going on, everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we're constantly and always still learning. So today we're going to find out whether or not the AtomCube RX1 made by Pilotfly is going to be the right pocket RGB LED for you and your overall filmmaking setup. Today's video is being sponsored by Pilotfly, in which they sent me 2 units to test, use, and offer this review to you. And at first glance, you're probably going to look at this light and say, well, isn't this basically the Boling P1 that you reviewed not too long ago? While it does share a bunch of similarities, there's actually a lot of other things that makes the RX1 a lot more interesting than the Boling P1. So without further ado, let's get into this review. Out of the box, you're going to get the light itself, which is made out of really solid aluminum, which is awesome. You do get a carrying pouch that has 2 loops in the back, and these loops you can latch it onto anything, whether it be a strap or your belt, or if you have a vest or backpack that has a MOLLE weave on it, you can use it with those as well. You do get a little 1/4-20 bracket. This is a difference from the Boling P1. It's not integrated onto the light itself. You do have to screw on this additional 1/4-20 bracket. And lastly, you do get a USB Type A to Type C charging cable. When it comes to the battery life, you're gonna get approximately 3 hours, whether you're in bicolored mode or RGB mode, and this is all at full blast. In terms of charging, if you're using the included cable and you plug it into a regular 2.4 amp charging block, it's going to take a little under 3 hours. Now, I don't have a USB Type-C charger or quick charger, so I'm not exactly sure if this light is going to charge faster if you charge it with that type of situation. All right, so let's show you what you can actually do with this. Once you turn it on, the screen's gonna pop up. And right now I'm in RGB mode, I believe. So let's go to regular. So right now you'll see my dimmer switch is actually at 0, so I can use that. And once I hit the hard stop, it's at 100. Now it doesn't give you necessarily a 1%. It's really hard to achieve, so 5% is the lowest it can go. From here, you can use the toggle switch to determine the color temp. There we are, 8500 is the highest, and it goes all the way down to 2500K. From here, if you click on anything inside the CCT bicolor mode, nothing's gonna happen. We hit set, and this takes us into our RGB modes. So from here, you can adjust the hue to whatever color it is you want. And if you want to change the saturation, go ahead and press that button in once, and then you can decrease the saturation that way. The next mode is our our manual mode. So what happens is I can say, hey, I want 85% of my reds to be going and maybe only 28% green, and then let's blast 50 or close to 50% blue. So you can really fine tune the colors if you have knowledge of what each color can do. Next, we have our color cycles. So this is where all the effects come in. And of course, when it comes to color cycles, you got full color, you have the red only, we have party, so it blasts through all the RGBs all over the place, back to full color. We have our police and siren lights. We got red and white, we got blue and red, we got blue and white, back to red and white. Lightning, we have 3 different modes, and that's it. Now, there's actually one more menu in here, so if we press and hold, this is where it gets pretty cool. So you do have the option to turn Bluetooth on and off. So if you know you're not going to be using it with a smartphone app, go ahead and turn the Bluetooth off so you're not wasting your batteries. Then we're going to go into the next one. Auto power off, you do have the ability to tell the light to shut off at any given moment to save batteries if you're using it like a flashlight, I guess. Now, Pwm Frequency, this is interesting. So generally speaking, this light here is not going to start exhibiting any type of flicker until you get to shutter speed 1600. So 16 kilohertz is generally speaking, you just add 2 more zeros and you know what the shutter max is. Now it can go all the way down to 10, but 10 exhibits a high-pitched noise, so I just keep it at 16, which is fine. Now this thing can go even higher. Is it necessary? Not really. Maybe if you're doing some high-speed videography where you're going in super slow-mo, but generally speaking, you're probably not going to be using these tiny little lights to light up that scene, so I would just leave it at 16. Bluetooth reset. So if you need to reset the Bluetooth here, this is what it would do. Up or down just simply means if you toggle up and down, it's going to reset the Bluetooth connection so that you can reconnect it with your app. Other than that, that is it. When it comes to power and how much light it blasts out, it actually blasts out more light than the Boling P1. When I was checking out the bicolor mode, you definitely get a lot more punch, especially when you go all the way up to 8500K. Even in RGB mode, it does blast out more power. In fact, one thing that was quite interesting is that I think the RGB chips are different because when you take a look at the green and the yellow, they do seem to be putting out different levels of saturation. So I'm not exactly sure if they just updated the panels recently, but generally speaking, the RX1 is more powerful than the Boling P1. Now, the major selling point of this light is the fact that you can use a smartphone app to talk to a group of these lights in a Bluetooth mesh network. Now, I'm gonna get into the smartphone app in a completely different video. It's not hard to figure out, but I'm gonna separate these 2 videos. The smartphone app is capable of doing pretty much anything the light is able to do on its own. So you can go into bicolored mode, change your kelvins, go to RGB mode, change your colors, your saturations, call up special effects like sirens and candle flickers. But one little cool thing is you can play music from your phone to the light so the light knows what to do, and then you can get some dance party lights going on as well. But the main feature is being able to control these lights. Now, in terms of what you can do, the short film I shot completely by myself, so this will give you an idea of just what you can do even completely on your own. The first special effects was where I used the RGB modes and the quick color buttons they had on the bottom from like red, green, cyan, basically everything on the vector scope. So essentially the character doesn't have the green light to make the shot yet. So I simply had my hand on the smartphone out of frame, and then I would tap the green button, and the moment it changed to green, I would make the action that I make the shot. The next one was the cool one, a little bit harder to achieve on your own, but I needed to simulate headlights passing by the window lighting up the character's face that's inside the garage and then disappearing again. So again, I'm using the smartphone app. I'm in bicolor mode at this point, and I'm simply sliding the brightness knob from 0 to 100 and then back down with my thumb out of frame to simulate that effect. So obviously, if you're on your own narrative set and you have a dedicated person that's using the smartphone to control a bunch of these effects and lights, you can achieve this. If I was able to do it completely on my own, then the sky's the limit in how you want to make these lights work. Now, you do have a principal light and then I guess the little slave lights, if you want to call it that talk to the principal light so it gets its instructions from it. You need to be approximately under 30 feet away from the principal light, and 30 feet is like the most ideal of conditions, which generally never happens on set. So you want to be under 30 feet away to talk to the principal lights so that the other lights can get the instruction. The other lights need to be somewhere between 10 to 15 feet away from the main light. Now, it can go even further in the most ideal conditions, or maybe if you're inside a house where the signals can kind of bounce around just a little bit. But generally speaking, I would say 15 feet, you're probably going to be safe to have these lights talking to each other. Now, the cool thing is you're not limited to just a group of these lights. So let's say you have 10 of them. If you have 10 of them, you can say group 1 has 3 of these lights, group 2 has another 3, and then group 3 has 4. So you can talk and create these independent groups within your mesh network and scene so that you're not trying to have 3 smartphones controlling 10 of these lights in 3 different groups. So that's definitely very awesome that you're able to do that. Now, I love the fact that they're using a smartphone app, because that means if there are certain features that we want to do in terms of how we want to control these special lights, like maybe you can say, I want the light to only bounce between these 2 colors. So maybe they can create an additional, not module, but additional page and say, hey, I want this color and I want this color and I want it to bounce back and forth at around this pace. The fact that they are using a smartphone app to achieve these types of effects, the sky's the limit. So Pilotfly, I hope you're listening, because I think you guys can do even more with your smartphone app. So what's the bottom line here? Honestly, this light is quite impressive and there's really not much I can say against it. It's essentially the Boling P1 with a whole bunch of different features added onto it, as well as more battery power and blasting out even more light. So at the time of this recording, this light is retailing at $170 on Amazon, but there is a 5% coupon right now, so it brings the price down to approximately $162, which is only $2 more than the Boling P1. Now, I do believe some people are going to ask me this very common question. Can I use the RX1 as a key light? And I'm gonna say yes and no. If you're gonna try to achieve something that's soft like this, a really large source, it is gonna be more difficult. It can be done, but you're gonna have to potentially up the ISO, drop down the aperture of your lens. You're gonna wanna shoot at 8500K, where the RX1 has the most blast power to kind of sort of simulate this. It's not gonna be perfect, but it could potentially work in a pinch. Where this light is gonna excel as a key light is if you're gonna be shooting something like John Wick. If you're shooting something like John Wick where there's always harsh shadows, these tiny little pocket lights are going to be able to create those nasty harsh shadows on your face, whether you're in color or bicolor mode. That's what these little pocket lights can definitely work as a key light, especially if you're shooting something like this. If you're shooting something like this, or maybe a little bit further away, you can definitely use it as a key light. So, all in all, the Bluetooth mesh network that allows you to create your own effects through the smartphone app. And if Pilotfly continues to add very interesting features into the app to talk to these lights, then that's great. In fact, if Pilotfly is gonna try to go into the lighting arena, because first and foremost, they're a gimbal company. They make some really awesome gimbals that I hope to review soon. But if they jump into the lighting arena and really try to expand their market, they're basically going to be going up against Aputure. So Pilotfly would need to make at least some sort of 1x1 flex panel. I say flex panel because that's where things are going these days. So if they can get a flex panel to talk into the Bluetooth mesh network, awesome. If they can create some tube lights like the Quasar Science is, yes. And lastly, of course, if they somehow get into the Cobb LED business, that's going to be a little bit tricky, but there are RGB Cobbs out there. So if they get into that business as well, and all this stuff can talk within a Bluetooth mesh network, then they're basically going to go head to head against Aputure. And where they're going to set themselves apart is that smartphone app. Can that smartphone app add so many things that would usually require somebody to be messing with dimmers and all that other good stuff? If they can make apps that allows the user to program timing of light changes, timing of light pulsing, what have you, all this stuff can be programmed. If they really, really, really focus on that app and jump into the lighting market, then yes, they're gonna go head to head against Aputure, and competition is always good. So without further ado, guys, that is it for this video review. If this video has made all the influence in your purchasing decisions, I would truly appreciate it if you check out my Amazon affiliate links down below. Again, this costs nothing extra to you, just gives me a little compensation so I can continue making videos like this for you. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave it down below. I will get to them as fast as I can. And until then, like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next one.